Hey everyone. I think it's the graveyard slot, 4:30. I've had some coffee, I hope some of you have as well. This talk is going to be embarrassingly consistent with Dan's talk. I promise we haven't compared notes beforehand. But also I kind of want to hear other perspectives as well. So there's some time at the end for you to argue with me on this. Please put your arguments into Slido, or frankly you can just kind of shout them out at the end. Let's see if the clicker works. So you're working in a startup and you have been made head of the tech org. Your job title might be CTO or VP engineering or VP technology, but you are the person in charge of running the company's tech function and you're part of the exec team that's running the company. It might seem like your job is to run the tech org and work with your peers in the exec team to get your people in the tech org what they need. But I'm going to argue that actually your job now is quite different to that. It's your job now to run the company as a whole as part of the exec team. So what does that mean? First, you're not an advocate for the tech org at exec level. You're not representing the tech org to the other execs. You're representing the exec team to the tech org. So then the question for you is, how can I ensure the tech org delivers what the rest of the business needs? That's a really different question from how can I get the rest of the business to do what the tech org needs. So you're holding the tech org to account. You need to understand what the business as a whole needs the tech org to do and how you're going to measure that. And then you need to get your org delivering on that and honestly report back to exec team on how that's going. And if it's not going well, then what you're going to do about it. Your job is not to make the tech org grow and thrive. It's to make the company as a whole deliver for customers so the whole company can grow and thrive. And this is one of the embarrassingly similar things. I went to sketchplanations for my diagram as well as in the previous talk. Focusing inwards on the tech org is a local optimization, and we all know that those are bad. What you need to do is get your head out of the boat. That's a term from sailing, where instead of focusing on what's happening in the boat, the actual sailing of the boat, you're focusing on what's happening over the rest of the course you're sailing. So in this analogy, your tech org is the boat. If the exec team is made up of people who are each looking out for the interests of their own org, their own discipline, then it is a place where politics rule, even in a small company. If it's a place where the different orgs or departments compete for control of resources, for credit when things go well, to avoid blame when they don't, then that is a recipe for disaster. To avoid the exec team being that political place where the different disciplines compete, the first thing you need is trust. Patrick Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, is good on this. He says there are 5 prerequisites for an effective executive team. The first is trust. The exec team need to trust one another. That means they need to get to know one another. You need to have regular time together as a team, enough time to build that trust. You should also have regular one-to-ones with each of the other members of exec team. You need to get to know them as people. You need to build trust by doing simple things like eating lunch together. You need to take the time to understand their discipline. So say for finance, you do need to understand the company's balance sheet and P&L. If that's not something that makes sense to you, then you're going to need to take the time to study and learn a whole load of things outside of tech. Lencioni says that teams with an absence of trust conceal their weaknesses and their mistakes from one another, hesitate to ask for help or provide constructive feedback, hesitate to offer help outside their own areas of responsibility, jump to conclusions about the intentions and aptitudes of others without attempting to clarify them. At Meta, we would have called this failing to assume good intent. They fail to recognize and utilize one another's skills and experiences. They waste time and energy managing their behaviors for effect. That's where everyone in the exec meeting is thinking, what will everyone else think if I say this? They hold grudges, and they dread meetings and find reasons to avoid spending time together. Whereas members of trusting teams admit weaknesses and mistakes, ask for help, accept questions and input about their areas of responsibility. So even implicitly, you can't say, if you knew as much as I do about tech, you wouldn't ask that question or you wouldn't have that opinion. You can't even say anything that might imply that. They give one another the benefit of the doubt before arriving at a negative conclusion. They take risks in offering feedback and assistance, focus their time and energy on important issues, not on politics, offer and accept apologies without hesitation, and look forward to meetings and other opportunities to work as a group. The second thing an exec team needs to work together effectively is conflict. The exec team as a whole can't have a fear of conflict. It has to be okay to discuss critical topics where individuals disagree and where different disciplines come at the issue from different perspectives. So the signs of team health here are you have lively, interesting meetings, not dull ones where nobody talks about issues that are contentious or difficult. Ones where there's no elephant in the room. You address the controversial topics that are critical for success of the business. You're not spending time on personal attacks, not direct ones, and not veiled ones through back channels and politics. You're not wasting time and energy with posturing and thinking about how the position you take will look to others. You're tapping into the opinions and perspectives of all the team. You're extracting and exploiting everyone's ideas. So this is where you, as a tech executive, need to know enough about the other disciplines to be able to have a meaningful, useful opinion on them. You need to have at least a rough idea of the basics of all the other disciplines in the company, the basics of their profession, but also their mindset. As someone who's come up through tech, you probably have some big gaps in your knowledge across a bunch of other disciplines. So it's time to identify those and do some study and knowledge transfer to get yourself up to speed on the basics. At the very least, you need to be able to talk the same language as the people who lead the other functions in the company. This is where the core tech skill of learning a lot of new things quickly can really come into its own. Once you've got trust across the team and you're addressing conflict, the next prerequisite to getting the team functioning effectively is commitment. Once a decision has been made, the whole team must commit to it, even if it wasn't the decision they individually would have made. They need to support it and do everything they can to make it work. To do this well, everyone must have a real opportunity to fully voice their opinion. The whole team needs to listen to each other with an open mind and be ready to be persuaded. This came up in the round table discussion we were having just before, and somebody mentioned how it feels if disagree and commit is really disagree and submit. That's where the boss just tells you what you're going to do and you're expected to just go and do it. That's not this. This is where the whole team has a chance to have input on it and the team makes the decision together. So everyone should come out of discussions thinking, when I went in, I had this opinion, but after hearing the perspectives of my colleagues, I can see why the group as a whole decided that. Once you've got commitment as a group, the next steps are to make the plans to execute those decisions and to hold each other accountable for executing them. It's not just the leader, the CEO, who should hold each person accountable for the results of their org or their people. Members of the exec team should also hold each other accountable. And finally, a focus on results. Are the actions that we're taking giving the results we need as a business? Are we, as they say at Y Combinator, making something people want? So those results might be metrics around usage or revenue, key outcomes for the business as a whole. And all that means you need to make the mental leap to consider the exec team, not the tech org, as your home team or your first team. You're not abandoning your people in the tech org, but you are subordinating the goals of the tech org to the overall needs and goals of the business. You're measuring the tech org and holding your people accountable on how well they deliver what the rest of the business needs, and ultimately what customers need. And at the same time, you're holding the other members of the exec team accountable for making sure that their orgs, their disciplines within the wider business, do what's needed to get the business to succeed. And as a team, you're measuring whether you're hitting that success and you're course correcting as needed. And all that means you personally are going to need to know about a lot more than just tech. So, a couple of practical recommendations. First, take the time to build relationships at a personal level with your peers in the exec team. Share meals with them and talk with them honestly about the successes and the challenges that you are facing with your org and expect them to do the same with you. Second, get the health of the exec team itself onto the agenda of the exec team. This isn't something you can fully address by yourself. All of you need to work together across the whole team to build trust, to face up to conflict, to make and honour commitments, to hold each other accountable, and to pay full attention to results. Third, take some time yourself to think about which of the other disciplines represented in an exec team you have a decent understanding of already, and which you need to learn more about, and then start learning. Tell the other members of exec team that you're doing this. It will improve your relationship with them because it's a way of showing that you respect their expertise and the discipline that they are part of. All of that while continuing to run the tech org, of course. A lot of this is a matter of opinion, and as we used to say in the Perl world, there's more than one way to do it. So I'm interested to hear your questions and your opinions. People in the room, or I think on Slido. Starting with the one at the top, what can be done about a founder who means well but is so swamped they can't deliver? Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think that's where the exec team as a whole needs to be running the business. So where I was saying execs hold one another accountable for making sure that the different orgs in the business are delivering, that takes some of the weight off the CEO's shoulders, because it's no longer solely the CEO's job to hold the rest of the exec team accountable. It's each exec's job to hold their peers accountable. That's a good one as well. Yeah, sometimes ultimately you need to say goodbye to people, and that, I guess, is got to be the CEO's decision. So the first thing I would suggest doing there is assuming good intent and talking to the other person about the problem and trying to understand their perspective, trying to understand if you can help, showing empathy, all of the usual things. I would try doing that for a good couple of months, like maybe 6 months, and I would also be talking to the CEO about it and trying not to undermine the other person, but to do my best to help them succeed. But you come to a point where occasionally that's not going to happen, and then you need to say goodbye to them. What's the right org roles, in your opinion, for engineering? I'm not sure what that question means. Anyone want to interpret it for me? No, I don't know. Where did T-shirt, eBay, saw it on a bumper sticker, liked it, Googled it. How do you measure the success of your life? I think I'm not just interested in measuring the success of my influence on them, I'm also interested in measuring the success of how much I let them influence me. So it's a two-way process. So I think it would be a mistake to say, I influence them a lot, they don't influence me much, therefore I'm winning. I think ultimately it's down to the success of the business. And I think if a team is working and you're part of that team, then you know. I wouldn't have any quantitative measures there, no. How do you foster collaboration in your exec team, without everyone being involved in everything? I think that's about the individual people in the exec team being very open and transparent about failures as well as successes, and KPIs are good for this. So one of the earlier talks, if you've boiled everything down to some metrics and you've got some really good graphs saying how you're progressing on that metric, you can tell pretty well success from failure without everyone having to go into all the details. Oh, they've gone because I'm running out of time. All right. Feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. Happy to continue the discussion on Slack. Yeah, thank you, everyone.